Hi, my name is Rachel Paxton. Today I'm going to show you how to make and can homemade applesauce. In this class you'll learn how to make homemade applesauce. I'll lead you through the process step by step. I'll give you the recipe and canning supply list you can download and print out for future reference. You can find those in your course materials. And you'll also gain the confidence you need to try more canning recipes on your own. For this recipe, you're going to need apples, lemon juice, sugar, and cinnamon. I haven't given exact amounts for most of these things because usually you won't have an exact amount. If I get a bunch of apples from a wild apple tree or someone gives them to me, I don't usually go to the effort to measure them. You just start cutting them and throwing in your pot. But just to give you some kind of reference, 20 pounds of apples makes approximately 7 quarts of applesauce. You're going to need a boiling water canner, a canning rack if you're using your own stock pot, a jar lifter, a wide mouth funnel, and quart or pint-sized canning jars. This is what a boiling water canner looks like. If you don't already have one, you'll need to get one. They're fairly inexpensive, between $20 and $30. You can get them at Walmart, and you can also get them online at Amazon. There's a link to this in the supply list in your course materials. You can also use your own stock pot for canning. If you have a pan that's tall enough to put your jars in and let you have an inch of water above your jars, then you can use your stock pot to can. You just need something like this to go in the bottom of your pan because you don't want your jars to sit on the bottom of the pan because they could break. These canning racks are about $10. You can order them online. There's also a link to this in your course materials on your supply list. So you do need something like this if you're going to use your stock pot, but this comes with your boiling water canner if you buy one of those. You need a jar lifter to take your jars in and out of the canner, a wide mouth funnel to put your food in your jars. You want to fill your canner about 3/4 of the way full with water and heat it till boiling. You actually don't need to turn on the stove quite yet because you're going to be cooking your apples for a little while, but at least have your canner nearby and ready. You want to sterilize your jars, rings, and lids in the dishwasher. You don't have to do it in the dishwasher if you don't have one, but the only other option is to do it in boiling water on the stove, and I don't like to take up the extra room on my stove, so I do it in my dishwasher. You can reuse your jars and your rings, but you can't reuse the lids. You need to buy new lids every time. So just run them through your dishwasher and leave them in the dishwasher till you're ready to use them. You want to sort through and wash your apples. For applesauce, you can use any variety of apples. As you can see, these aren't perfect looking apples, and that's because I picked wild apples and they were free. So that's the best kind of apples. And with applesauce, you just need to cut off the bad spots. If there's any wormholes or anything like that, you just cut them off. So if you have the opportunity to get free apples, or you have some apples that aren't perfect looking that you can't use for anything else, then applesauce is a great alternative. You don't even need to peel your apples to make applesauce if you have a food mill to run them through. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. All you need to do is to cut your apples in quarters, and I do cut off any bad spots that I see. If I see any holes or anything, I cut those off. If you want to make flavored applesauce, you just want to add a couple of cups of other fruit such as peaches, cranberries, plums, or strawberries into your apple mixture. I just throw it in with the apples and cook it all together. My family really likes flavored applesauce. Strawberry applesauce is really good, and actually all of these are. Each person has their own favorite, so you might want to try some different kinds. It's really neat to see the different colors of applesauce, so you might get a kick out of that. Your family will like the different flavors, so you might want to give that a try sometime. After you get all your fruit in the stock pot, you want to cover it with water. I usually make the water about even with the top of the fruit or a little bit lower. There is some water in the apples, so that will cook out as they are boiling. You want to cook them until the apples are soft, about 30 minutes. You'll notice that your apples are starting to get soft, and then all of a sudden they'll just kind of disintegrate like in this picture. That you'll know when they're done, when they just fall apart. And the softer they are, the easier it'll be to run them through the food mill. This is a food mill. I bought this on Amazon. It's about $40. There's a link to it in your supply list. You don't have to have this to make applesauce. If you are not using a food mill, you need to core and peel your apples before you put them in the pan. And then after you cook them, you can just blend them in the blender with an immersion blender, and then you'll have your applesauce without using the food mill. But if you don't want to peel them or take the seeds out of them, then this is a lot easier. You just put the apples on the top of it and turn the handle, and it leaves the seeds and stems and peels in the top, and the applesauce goes through. There's 3 different blades that you can put in this for if you want to make different sauces or syrups even. It lets different amounts of juice and pulp go through. So it washes really easily. It's stainless steel, and I just love mine. It's going to last forever. It's very well made. So again, there's a link to this in your supply list if you're interested in one of these. I use mine all the time. So this is what your applesauce will look like after it goes through the food mill. But again, if you peeled your apples and seeded them by hand, you can still get your applesauce to look like this just by blending it in a blender or with a mixer or something. Immersion blenders are really nice too. You just stick the blender down in your pan and it would blend it up to make it look like this. At this point, you want to add a couple of tablespoons of lemon juice to add a little acidity to the recipe. And also add sugar and cinnamon if desired. The apples I had were really sour, so you have to add more sugar for sour apples. Some people don't add any sugar. You don't have to add sugar if your applesauce is sweet enough. And the cinnamon is optional. You can put no cinnamon in or a lot of cinnamon, however much you like. So this part is completely optional. You can also use honey to sweeten it. You don't have to use sugar. So you can leave it out if you want, or put as much or as little in as you want. It will not affect the safety of your recipe. So sweeten it to your taste. And also, if your applesauce is not the thickness that you would like, if it's too thick to pour, then you would probably want to add a little bit of water to it so that it whatever consistency it is right now is the consistency it's going to be when you eat it. So if you need to thin it a little bit with a little water, go ahead and put a little water in it, stir it up, and then ladle it into your sterilized jars, leaving a 1/2 inch headspace. The headspace is the amount of space between the top of the applesauce and the top of the jar. Your headspace is very important when you're canning. If you don't have enough headspace, your food will expand in the jar when it's being processed, and your jar can break in the canner if there's not enough space in there. So make sure whatever your recipe says for the headspace to allow that much space. And so just keep that in mind when you're filling your jars. Next, you want to wipe the rims of your jars with a damp paper towel or dish towel. This makes sure there's no food on the top of the jar so that you'll get a good seal on your jars. And then place your rings and lids on the jars just finger tight. Place them in the canner, and you're going to process pint or quart jars for 20 minutes. This is for if you are less than 1,000 feet in elevation. If you're more than 1,000 feet in elevation, you will need to increase your processing time. So if you're not sure about that, check your altitude chart in your course materials. Or you can also find them online for free very easily. So just check that out if you're not sure, but if you're below 1,000 feet, then it's 20 minutes for this recipe. You also want to make sure that your water is 1 inch above your jars and that it's boiling the entire time. You don't set your timer until the water starts boiling. Your water doesn't have to be boiling when you put the jars in the canner, but don't start the timer until the water is boiling. After the time is up, use your jar lifter to remove the jars from the canner and set your jars on the kitchen counter to cool. When the jars seal, you'll hear a pinging noise. Some of them will seal in the canner, and sometimes it takes a few minutes for them to seal when they come out of the canner. So if it's not sealed yet, don't worry. Wait until it's completely cooled to check all the seals again. You can tell if a jar is sealed or not by pressing your finger down in the middle of the lid. If it goes down and up again, then it is not sealed. If it is flat, then it is sealed. If it is sealed, you can store it in a dark, cool area for 1 to 2 years. If it is not sealed, you can still eat it, but you need to put it in the refrigerator and eat it in the next couple of weeks. This applesauce is really fun to make. I make it every year because we have a place that we go and pick wild apples for free. So I always pick several boxes of them so that I can make an applesauce for us to eat all winter. I think out of all the different things I can, this is one of the things that our family eats the most of. So it's hard to make too much of it, and you can also give it away as gifts to friends and family if you have extra. So have fun with this. Try some different flavors. The cranberry applesauce is a great thing to have around the holidays, so that's a fun recipe too. So give this a try and see what you think.